Okie dokes. So, based on what we're talking about in our chat group, I thought I'd just record like a really, really quick and dirty sort of tutorial about the masking thing I'm talking about. Um, because especially in Lightroom, it's so super easy now, but it's such a good way of doing things. It's how I do anything that is the landscape really now, but so just you'll see what I mean with the idea of editing your photo in different zones, doing these adjustments in different zones can be applied to just about anything. Um, but here we go. So this is just a photo that's not exactly the same as what John had in his example, but it's fairly similar in that we've got some very bright spots and some very dark spots. That's a landscape. So it's got some basic adjustments already applied. These are the ones from the camera. And sometimes I might fiddle around with it here first. But what I'm going to do instead is we go here to the masking module. Well, not the module, the masking tool. And what we do is we just going to say add new mask, select the sky, and it selects and finds the sky, which is really nice. Then what you're going to do is right click on that, duplicate and invert, and there. You've now split your photo into two areas where we have the sky and we have the not sky, and we're going to edit them separately. Because what I want to do to the sky is not the same as what I want to do to the rest of the photo. So let's click on our sky selection here. This is a very bland sky. So what I might do is I've contrasted both. Ooh, look at the cloud details coming out now. I might drop the exposure ever so slightly, but then bring up not the highlights, bring out the whites so I can bring out some of that sun glare there. But then again, let's take down shadow. Anyway, this is how you end up tweaking everything, but I can do that now without it affecting the rest of the photo. Let's see here. Now you can also go and do your curves. You can do all sorts of adjustments, and it's only going to apply to these areas that we've selected, which is fantastic. Um, let's do the ground adjustments. Now, the other reason I selected this picture is because it's not just a simple sky ground thing. We've got this reflection. So what I actually want to do is I'm thinking of this photo into three parts. So I have the sky, I have this dark ground here, and then I have the reflection of the sky. And those are three different areas that I want to chop up. And that hasn't been done by the automatic adjustments. So the way I'm going to do that right now is I'm going to adjust the ground, but I'm actually going to be thinking, I'm going to be looking mostly at the reflection. That's what I'm thinking about right now. And put more contrast. Let's tweak it. Doesn't actually need to. No, I want there we go. So I want that sort of shining to actually match what's in the sky a little more, but we don't want it to be quite as much. No, leave the blacks where they were. Contrast. Okay, that does it quite nicely. Now, what I'm going to, so I'm still thinking of this ground bit here. So I'm going to add a manual selection and a couple of ways to do that. I'm going to try out the objects selection first. And then what we're going to do, actually, you know what? I'm going to divide this up further. I'm going to have this sort of black bar here as one section and then the background mountains as a separate edit. So let's see how the object selection tool does it. So you highlight what you want selected, and then hopefully the very clever AI will go and detect the objects. Oh yeah, oh, they did a pretty good job. So I want to clean it up slightly. You see, there's this area, it selected some of the background that I actually didn't want. So we go here, select the subtract from mask, select the brush. Going to go to my brush tools, have auto mask on further, and I want the flow up. And now this is my paintbrush. And we're going to get rid of that. So the brush settings, the most important thing is that auto mask, because that's going to help detect that hard line that's there. It'll select it will see a nice contrast area and realize, okay, you probably didn't want to select that out, which is useful for this kind of thing. Okay, so that's not a perfect selection, but it's going to do for now. It's going to be the middle one. So the thing to remember is that this adjustment layer is sitting on top of that other, well, sorry, not adjustment layer, it's adjustment mask. Although layers is probably the other way you could have done this, and probably the neater way. But remember that this adjustment is sitting on top of the previous adjustment that we did, this one. So any changes that we then made to this one later on would affect it, but being lazy here, so that's why we're doing this. Okay, so what I think I want this to be quite silhouetted. So up the contrast, there's obviously not a lot of uh, high level details in here. But okay, that's fine. Now I'm going to make a I'm not sure so okay, I want to select the mountain range here. I am not sure that the object tool would be such a good tool to use here, because obviously the way it's detecting objects is color contrast. I would select the mountains, it would do a nice job, but it would select out the clouds. So I think I'm going to try out a manual one, and a manual brush select, and then we'll keep it in, and then we'll refine it a bit later. So let's see, I'm going to use the same settings for now. That auto mask is going to be useful. Yeah, there we go. Okay, not bad. Yeah, it's working pretty well. Um, a little bit of bleeding there. Let's see, this is okay. Okay, now to clean it up, we just go to erase, auto mask again, because that's important. I do want the flow all the way up, so I don't want any sort of graduation. So if you had, so the flow is sort of like how much of how thick the mask is. At 100%, it's as thick as it is. If it was at 50%, it's not as strong. So all the adjusting to make wouldn't be as strong. Uh, so let's clean up the edges a bit. Um, if you're doing, so you do have some leeway to be a little bit messy with these sort of things. Like these aren't the cleanest things, but if you then put in very, very stark adjustments here, like a very, like the exposure went right up or something like that, you'd see the bleeding over the edges, but we're not going to be doing that. So you can get away with being a little bit imprecise. It's okay. I'm going to want to add some back in. Yeah. I also noticed that it's not as quite as thick as I'd like it to be around here. Uh, let's just go touch up this bit. So it's clearly, you can see how the colors are, a little bit similar there. So that's why the selection is getting a little confused. Um, okay. And then just so to clean up these little bits in here where it's made the selection not quite as thick, I'm just going to go no mask, but full flow, and just make sure that's nice and even. Okay, I think that'll do. So let's see what I want to do with these mountains, 'cause I think there's some interesting shades in there in contrast to bring out. Uh, hmm. Yeah, you're just going to be tweaking your things as you see fit. This is also useful for things like if you know, you have your texture, clarity, the sharpness. All of these things can be applied to a mask. So this is massively, massively flexible. Um, let's go. Okay, so I'm fairly happy with that on the individual level, but now I'm looking at the photo as a whole, and it's not quite. It looks a little dark to me, so I'm actually going to do some overall adjustments. Now that's a little better, but then again, now this area here is too bright for my liking, and I had brought that up, so let's bring it back down. There we go. And then you just tweak your photo like so. There's a lot of ways you can use this masking. There's radial gradients, linear gradients. So linear is when you apply a gradient like this, which is the old way you would have adjusted your sky and such back in the day before things got all smart. And there's also the radial gradients, um, which is a nice big circle like this. So I use vignettes a lot on pictures, which is separate from this, but there's still the post crop vignetting, which is darkening the edges. I do it on basically every photo to some degree. I just helping have a sort of implied border there just helps to focus things. But if you want to be specific, this is a nice tool for doing that because you can uh, make a shape here and then invert it. And then you go adjust the exposure down a bit, maybe tweak some of the other things, and you now get this much more sort of customizable vignette shape. I probably wouldn't have done it on this photo otherwise, but this is more just for the sake of um, showing you. Yeah. All right. Yeah, I think that's good. So you can also use these things to do or the masking to do a sort of much more advanced version of dodging and burning. Dodging and burning was just your back in the old days of film. This was just making certain areas of your photo lighter or darker. So you can do that now, which I still tend to do, but now you can do it for different adjustments. So this area of the photo is still bothering me. It's just not. It's not brighter. It's about as bright as I'd like, but it feels too pale. So I actually want to do a bit of contrast in there. So I'd use quite a light brush, no doubt, a little flow, and we're just gonna paint a little bit uh, over there. And now add in the adjustment, the contrast. Okay, there we go. It's very subtle, but I think that's an improvement. Um, and then we can also go and paint that adjustment in elsewhere. Oh, actually, I can just see that now those highlights there have gotten just a slight bit too dim for my liking. So I'm going to bring them up. Okay, so I ended up getting a bit lost in tweaking the photo there, so I've cut out a chunk. But yeah, that is your masking and adjustments. It's a massively flexible tool, and it's so much easier now that the automatic selection options are so good. Um, that's why this sort of splitting a landscape into different the sky zone, the ground, and other parts of the photo is so easy and quick now. It's just part of it. It should be part of your workflow or for me, it is anyway. I think it's a very useful tool to just sort of think about where you're um, guiding the guiding the viewer's eye is what you really want to think about. What parts of the photos are people looking at? This is maybe not the best example for that, but that's how you use this tool, and you have such immense control over that now. Um, this is the I'm reasonably happy with this photo. You can have a look at the before and after. Um, yeah, a lot more contrast than that. But yeah, that's it. This was totally unscripted and very unplanned, which is why it's stretched out for far too long. But I hope it's helpful. Cheers.